Emily could see the calculations happening in real time. Who would move first? Who would exploit this? How fast the news would spread that Adrian Volkov had been humiliated in front of everyone who mattered. She should leave. This wasn't her problem. She'd done her job, and what happened now was between the groom and his disaster of a bride. But something kept her rooted in place, watching the scene unfold with the sick fascination of someone witnessing a car crash in slow motion. Then Adrian lifted his head and looked directly at her. Emily's breath caught. She'd seen him before, obviously, had coordinated with him during planning meetings, had watched him navigate his own wedding preparations with the same ruthless efficiency he probably brought to his business dealings. But she'd never been the focus of his attention like this. His eyes were dark and sharp and completely devoid of whatever she'd expected to see. No vulnerability, no plea for help, just assessment. He beckoned her forward. Emily's feet moved before her brain caught up. She crossed the cathedral floor with her clipboard still clutched against her chest like a shield, hyper-aware of every eye that turned to track her movement. When she reached the altar, Adrian looked up at her with an expression that could have been carved from marble. "What's your name?" he asked. "Emily Carter?" Her voice came out steadier than she felt. "I'm the event planner." "I know what you are." He studied her face with an intensity that made her want to step back. "Are you married?" The question was so unexpected that Emily almost laughed. "No." "Engaged? In a relationship?" "No." She had no idea where this was going, but her heart was starting to hammer against her ribs in a way that suggested her instincts knew something her conscious mind hadn't caught up to yet. Adrian's gaze swept over her once, cataloging and dismissing in the same moment. White blouse, black slacks, hair pulled back in a professional bun. Nothing remarkable. Nothing that would draw attention in any direction. Perfect. "How much do you make in a year?" he asked. Emily blinked. "I don't think that's ballpark." 60,000. It came out defensive. "Plus commission on events." "I'll pay you $5 million, Adrian said. "All you have to do is marry me. Right now. In front of everyone here." The world tilted sideways. Emily heard the words, understood them individually, but couldn't make them fit together into anything that made sense. "What?" "You heard me?" Adrian's voice was flat, businesslike. $5 million, tax-free, transferred to any account you want. In exchange, you put on a dress, walk down that aisle, and say 2 words when the priest asks his question. Emily's mouth had gone dry. "You're serious?" "Do I look like I'm joking?" He didn't. That was the problem. He looked like a man who'd just had his life blown apart and was now making decisions with the cold logic of someone who'd stopped caring about anything except survival. "I can't," Emily started, but Adrian cut her off. "You can. You will. Because in about 5 minutes, every person in this cathedral is going to realize that I've been publicly humiliated. And the second that happens, my credibility is gone. Enemies I've kept in check through reputation alone will see weakness. Allies will reconsider their loyalties. Business partners will start looking for exit strategies." His hands tightened on the arms of his wheelchair. "I can survive a lot of things. I can't survive looking like a man who gets left at the altar by a woman who decided I'm not worth the trouble now that I'm in this chair." The bitterness in those last words was the first crack in his armor, and it made something twist uncomfortably in Emily's chest. She'd grown up invisible, the middle daughter in a family that only noticed extremes. Not pretty enough to coast on looks, not difficult enough to demand attention. She'd learned early that the world had a category for people like her, useful but forgettable, background characters in someone else's story. She'd made peace with it, built a career on being exactly that, competent, reliable, invisible. She coordinated other people's perfect moments and went home to an empty apartment where no one cared whether she existed or not. But this man was offering her $5 million to step into the spotlight in the most spectacular way possible. "They'll know it's fake," Emily said. Her voice sounded distant, like it belonged to someone else. "Everyone will know you just grabbed a random woman because your bride ran away." "Of course they'll know." Adrian's expression didn't change. "That's the point. I'm not trying to convince anyone this is a love match. I'm showing them that I don't break. That when someone tries to destroy me, I adapt. I find a solution, and I do it without hesitation or apology. By marrying your event planner. By marrying someone who has nothing to do with my world and therefore nothing to gain from betraying me. He leaned forward slightly. You want to know why you? Because you're nobody. You have no connections to my business, no history with my enemies, no reason to care about the politics that just blew up my wedding. You're exactly what I need right now, a blank slate I can control. It should have stung. Maybe it did, somewhere under the shock. But Emily had spent her whole life being nobody to people who mattered, and at least Adrian was honest about it. At least he was offering her something in return. What happens after? She asked. After the ceremony? We play our parts. You move into my house, attend functions as my wife, maintain appearances. The marriage lasts 1 year. At the end of 12 months, we divorce quietly. You walk away with your money and your life intact. I'll have stabilized my position by then. And if I say no? For the first time, something almost like humor flickered across Adrian's face. Then you go back to planning weddings for $75 an hour while I figure out plan B. But you're not going to say no, Emily Carter, because I can see it in your eyes. You're already calculating what $5 million could buy you. Freedom, security, a way out of whatever small life you've been living. So stop pretending you're going to walk away from this. He was right. That was the worst part. Emily could already feel her resistance crumbling under the weight of what he was offering. She'd spent 28 years being careful, being responsible, being exactly what people expected. She'd played by every rule and had nothing to show for it except a string of jobs that paid the bills and relationships that fizzled out when men realized she wasn't interesting enough to fight for. This was insane. Reckless. Exactly the kind of decision she'd spent her life avoiding. Okay, Emily heard herself say. I'll do it. Adrian's expression didn't change, but something shifted behind his eyes. Relief, maybe, or just satisfaction at having correctly read her desperation. He turned his wheelchair toward the front row, where 3 men sat watching the exchange with varying degrees of alarm. Marcus, Adrian called. The largest of the 3, a man who looked like he could break someone in half without much effort, stood immediately. Boss? Find a wedding dress. I don't care where you get it. Something that fits her? You have 10 minutes. Marcus didn't question it, just nodded and disappeared toward the back of the cathedral with 2 other men following. Emily watched them go with a surreal sense of detachment. This was happening. She'd just agreed to marry a man she didn't know in front of an audience of criminals because he'd offered her enough money to change her life. Take that off, Adrian said, nodding at her clipboard. You look like you're about to take notes on my wedding instead of participating in it. Emily set the clipboard down on the altar with hands that had started to shake. I don't know what I'm doing. Good. Neither does anyone else right now. Just follow my lead. He caught her wrist before she could step away, his grip firm but not painful. One more thing. When we're in public, you call me Adrian, not Mr. Volkov, not boss. We're selling the idea that this was a choice, not a transaction. Understood? Emily nodded. Her wrist felt warm where his fingers pressed against her pulse. The next 10 minutes passed in a blur. Marcus returned with a dress. White, simple, probably meant for one of the bridesmaids based on the style. It fit badly, too tight in the shoulders and too loose in the waist. But when Emily looked at herself in the small mirror in the bridal suite, she barely recognized the woman staring back. She looked terrified, which was accurate. Vivian appeared in the doorway, arms crossed. You're actually doing this? Apparently. Emily tried to smooth down the dress, but her hands wouldn't stop shaking. You know he's only using you, right? The second this stops being convenient, you're gone. I know. And you're okay with that? Emily met Vivian's gaze in the mirror. He's paying me $5 million to wear a dress and say I do. Yeah, I'm okay with that. Vivian shook her head but didn't argue. Just stepped aside when Marcus reappeared to escort Emily back to the cathedral. The walk down the aisle was nothing like the romantic moment she'd coordinated for other brides. No music, no flower petals, just the weight of 200 stairs and the sound of her own heartbeat thundering in her ears. Adrian waited at the altar with the same expressionless calm he'd shown since Scarlett disappeared. When Emily reached him, he held out his hand. She took it. His palm was warm and dry against hers, steady in a way that shouldn't have been comforting, but somehow was. The priest looked like he wanted to object. Adrian's stare silenced whatever protest he'd been forming. "We're ready," Adrian said. "Begin." The ceremony was brutally efficient. No readings, no vows, just the bare minimum required to make it legal. When the priest asked if she took Adrian Volkov to be her lawfully wedded husband, Emily's voice came out stronger than she expected. "I do." Adrian's response was quieter. "I do." "Then by the power vested in me—" "Skip to the end," Adrian interrupted. The priest swallowed. "I now pronounce you husband and wife." "Good." Adrian turned his wheelchair toward the crowd, still holding Emily's hand. "Everyone, thank you for coming. There's been a change in today's arrangements, as you've obviously noticed. This is Emily, my wife. If anyone has a problem with that, feel free to leave now." No one moved. The silence was absolute. Adrian's expression hardened. "Excellent. Marcus, make sure the reception proceeds as planned. I'm sure our guests are hungry after all this entertainment." He released Emily's hand and rolled toward the side exit without looking back. Emily stood frozen at the altar, suddenly hyper-aware that she'd just married a stranger in front of a room full of people who probably carried guns to weddings. Marcus touched her elbow gently. "Come on, Mrs. Volkov. You're supposed to follow him." Mrs. Volkov. The name felt like someone else's. Emily gathered the ill-fitting dress and hurried after Adrian. She caught up to him in the corridor leading to the cathedral's private rooms. He'd stopped by a window, staring out at the New York skyline, with an expression that was finally devastatingly human. "Are you okay?" Emily asked. Wrong question. Adrian's mask slammed back into place so fast she almost missed the moment of vulnerability. "I'm fine." He didn't look at her. "The car will take you to my house. Marcus will show you to your room. Stay there until someone comes to get you for the reception. Don't talk to anyone. Don't answer questions. If anyone asks, we've been seeing each other quietly for months. Scarlett was a political arrangement that fell through. This," he gestured between them, "is what I wanted all along." "And people will believe that?" "No." Adrian finally turned to face her. "But they'll accept it because the alternative is admitting they watched me get humiliated, and no one in that room wants to be on record as having witnessed that. So they'll play along. And so will you." Emily wanted to argue, wanted to push back against the cold calculation in his voice, but she'd made her choice when she said, "I do," and Adrian Volkov didn't seem like the kind of man who allowed for takebacks. "Understood," she said. "Good." He rolled past her toward the exit. "Welcome to your new life, Emily. Try not to get yourself killed in the first week." The house was a fortress disguised as a mansion. Emily stared up at it from the back seat of Adrian's car, a sleek black sedan with bulletproof windows, because apparently that was just a standard feature in his world, and tried to process the fact that this was now where she lived. As if she'd somehow earned the right to occupy space in this monument to wealth and power by standing at an altar for 5 minutes and promising herself to a man who'd barely looked at her since. Marcus opened her door. "Mrs. Volkov, please don't call me that." The words came out more desperate than she intended. His expression softened slightly. "It's what you are now. Better get used to it." The interior of the house was exactly what Emily expected. All dark wood and expensive art, and the kind of furniture that probably cost more than her annual salary. Marcus led her up a sweeping staircase to the second floor, then down a hallway that seemed to stretch for miles. He stopped at a door near the end. "Your room," he said. "Bathroom's through there. Closet's already stocked. If you need anything, there's a phone by the bed. Dial 0 for household staff. The reception starts in 2 hours. Someone will come help you get ready." Emily stepped inside. The room was beautiful in the impersonal way of expensive hotels. King bed, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking manicured gardens, sitting area with a couch that looked like no one had ever sat on it. Her suitcase from this cathedral was already waiting by the closet. Someone had unpacked it. Her clothes, cheap, practical, wrong for this place, were hanging next to designer pieces she'd never chosen. "Marcus?" she called before he could leave. "Where does Adrian sleep?" "East wing? Opposite side of the house?" Marcus studied her face. "You expected something different?" "I don't know what I expected." That was the truth. Emily had signed up for a contract marriage, not a real one, but some part of her had assumed there would be proximity. Shared space. something that made this feel less like she'd been installed in a guest room and forgotten. "Boss doesn't do closeness," Marcus said, not unkindly. "Don't take it personally." He left before Emily could ask what she was supposed to take it as instead. She spent the next hour sitting on the edge of the bed, still wearing the borrowed wedding dress, trying to make sense of what she'd done. $5 million. That's what she kept coming back to. Enough money to never worry about rent again, to start over somewhere new if she wanted, to stop being invisible not because someone finally noticed her, but because she could afford to make herself impossible to ignore. 1 year. That's all Adrian wanted. 12 months of playing pretend in front of people who would see through it immediately but wouldn't dare say anything. She could do that. She'd spent her whole life pretending to be fine, pretending to be content, pretending she didn't mind being overlooked. This was just another version of the same performance, except this time, she was getting paid. A knock at the door interrupted her spiral. A woman entered without waiting for permission, tall, elegant, somewhere in her 50s, with the kind of polished appearance that spoke to personal stylists and expensive salons. "Emily?" she said. Not a question. "I'm Irina. I manage the household. We need to get you ready for the reception." "I can dress myself," Emily said. "Not for this, you can't." Irina's tone wasn't cruel, just factual. "Everyone at that reception will be analyzing every detail of your appearance. The dress you choose, how you style your hair, whether your jewelry matches your husband's status. If you walk in looking like you threw together an outfit from your closet at home, they'll know exactly what you are." And what am I? A mistake Adrian made in a moment of desperation. Irina crossed to the closet and began pulling out dresses. "Unless we make them believe otherwise." Emily wanted to argue, but Irina was right. She'd worked enough high-profile events to understand the language of wealth and power. Appearances mattered, especially when you were trying to convince dangerous people that you belonged in their world. The dress Irina chose was midnight blue, fitted but not tight, with a neckline that was elegant without being dramatic. The kind of dress that whispered money without shouting it. Emily let Irina pin up her hair and apply makeup with professional efficiency. When she finally looked in the mirror, she barely recognized herself. She looked like someone's wife. Not Adrian's, maybe, but someone's. "Better," Irina said. "One more thing." She produced a ring box. Inside was a wedding band, simple, platinum, with a single diamond that caught the light like a trapped star. Emily stared at it. "Adrian sent it up," Irina explained. "He's already wearing his." Of course he was. Because Adrian Volkov thought of everything, even the details that made a fake marriage look real. Emily held out her hand and let Irina slide the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. She didn't want to think about how he'd known her ring size. The reception was held in the mansion's ballroom, because apparently Adrian's house had a ballroom. Emily entered on Marcus's arm since Adrian was already inside, and the conversation died the second she appeared. 200 faces turned to assess her. 200 minds calculating whether she was a threat, an opportunity, or just another woman foolish enough to think she could survive Adrian Volkov's world. Adrian sat at the head table, watching her approach with an expression that gave away nothing. He changed into a different suit, this one even more expensive, if that was possible. The wedding band on his left hand matched hers. "You look acceptable," he said when she reached him. "Thank you. You look like you'd rather be literally anywhere else." Something almost like amusement flickered across Adrian's face. "Get used to that. I feel that way most of the time." He gestured to the seat beside him. "Sit. Smile. Don't volunteer information. If someone asks you a direct question, keep your answer short and boring. Understood?" Emily sat. "Do I get to eat, or is that against the rules too?" "Eat. You'll need your energy." The meal was excruciating. Person after person approached their table to offer congratulations that sounded more like interrogations. Emily stuck to Adrian's script. Yes, they'd been seeing each other quietly for months. Yes, she knew this was sudden. Yes, she was very happy. The lies came easier than she expected, maybe because they weren't that different from the ones she'd been telling herself for years. "I'm fine. I'm content. This is enough." Halfway through dinner, a woman appeared at their table. Beautiful, cold, wearing a red dress that probably cost more than Emily's car. Her smile was razor sharp. "Adrian," she said, "congratulations. I had no idea you were seeing someone. How surprising. Adrian's expression didn't change. Julia, thank you for coming. I wouldn't have missed it. Julia's gaze slid to Emily like a scalpel. You must be the new Mrs. Volkov. I don't believe we've met. Emily, she said, keeping her voice steady. Emily. Julia drew out the name. And what do you do, Emily, when you're not marrying into one of New York's most powerful families? I plan events. How appropriate. Julia's smile sharpened. I'm sure you'll find plenty to plan in your new position. Adrian does love his parties. There was something underneath the words. A history Emily didn't understand. She glanced at Adrian, but his face was a mask. Is there something you want to say, Julia? Adrian asked quietly. Only that Scarlett sends her regards. Julia's voice dropped. She wanted me to tell you she hopes you and your little replacement are very happy together. The temperature at the table dropped. Adrian's hands tightened on the arms of his wheelchair, the only sign that Julia's words had landed. Emily felt suddenly, viscerally aware that she'd stepped into the middle of something she didn't fully understand. Scarlett made her choice, Adrian said. I've made mine. If she has a problem with that, she can tell me herself. Oh, I'm sure she will. Julia's gaze flicked to Emily one more time, assessing and dismissing in the same moment. Good luck, Emily. You're going to need it. She walked away before Emily could respond. The silence at the table stretched. Who was that? Emily asked finally. Someone who should learn to mind her own business, Adrian said. He turned his wheelchair away from the table. Come on, we need to do the first dance. Emily's stomach dropped. I didn't know we were doing that. We're married. It's expected. He rolled toward the center of the ballroom where a space had been cleared. Don't worry. I'll lead. The music started before Emily could protest, something slow and classical that she didn't recognize. Adrian locked his wheelchair and held out his hand. When Emily took it, he pulled her close, not quite touching, but near enough that she could feel the heat radiating from him. His other hand settled at her waist. Move with me, he said quietly. Match my rhythm. It wasn't a traditional dance. It couldn't be, with Adrian in his chair, but he guided her through something that looked choreographed from a distance. Small steps, turns that brought her in and out of his space, movements that created the illusion of partnership. Emily followed his lead, hyper-aware of every eye watching them. You're tense, Adrian murmured. I'm terrified. Good. Use it. Fear makes you careful. Careful keeps you alive. That's not comforting. It's not supposed to be. His hand tightened slightly at her waist. You're doing fine. Just don't trip. That would undermine the whole thing. Emily almost laughed. Would have, if the situation wasn't so surreal. Dancing with her husband of 3 hours while 200 criminals pretended this was a love match instead of a desperate grab for control. When the song ended, Adrian released her immediately. No lingering, no moment of connection, just business concluded. Go mingle, he said. Smile. Be boring. I'll handle the rest. Emily spent the next 2 hours being exactly that, boring. She smiled at strangers, made small talk about nothing, deflected questions with the practiced ease of someone who'd spent years being professionally pleasant. By the time the reception finally ended, her face hurt from forcing cheerfulness she didn't feel. Marcus drove them back to the mansion in silence. Adrian stared out the window the entire drive, lost in thoughts he didn't share. When they arrived, he disappeared toward the east wing without a word. Emily climbed the stairs to her room and closed the door behind her with a relief that felt like collapse. She was married, to a man who treated her like a business expense, in a house that felt more like a prison than a home. And somehow, she'd agreed to do this for an entire year. Emily peeled off the blue dress and hung it carefully in the closet next to clothes that would never feel like hers. The wedding band caught the light as she moved. She twisted it around her finger, testing the weight of it. $5 million. That's what this ring meant. Not love, not commitment. Just a transaction with terms and an expiration date. She should feel relieved. This was exactly what she'd signed up for. A business arrangement with clear boundaries and no emotional complications. Adrian had made it obvious that he didn't want anything from her except appearances and compliance. So why did she feel so completely, devastatingly alone? Emily climbed into the enormous bed and stared at the ceiling. Somewhere in the opposite wing, Adrian was probably doing the same thing. Two people bound by law and convenience, living in the same house but existing in completely separate worlds. 1 year, she reminded herself. Just 1 year. She could survive anything for 1 year, even this. Emily woke to sunlight cutting across unfamiliar walls and the disorienting realization that she'd married a stranger yesterday. The wedding band felt heavy on her finger. She lay there for a moment, staring at the ceiling, waiting for panic to set in. It didn't. Just a dull acceptance that settled in her chest like old weight. Her phone was buzzing on the nightstand. 7 missed calls from her sister Rachel, 12 texts, each more frantic than the last. Emily scrolled through them with a detachment that probably should have worried her. Did you actually marry Adrian Volkov? Mom saw it on the news. Call me now. Emily, what the hell? She didn't call back. Didn't know what she'd say if she did. Yes, I married him. No, I don't love him. Yes, I'm getting paid. The truth sounded worse than any lies she could come up with. A knock at the door made her sit up. Irina entered carrying a breakfast tray, her expression as neutral as yesterday. Mr. Volkov requests your presence in his office at 9, she said, setting the tray on the sitting area table. He has some things to discuss. Does he always communicate through other people? When it's efficient, yes. Irina moved to the closet. I've laid out appropriate clothing for the day. Business casual. You have several appearances this week. Emily picked at the breakfast. Eggs, toast, fruit she couldn't name, while Irina talked through her new schedule like she was outlining a military campaign. Lunch with Adrian's business partners on Tuesday. Charity gala on Thursday. Private dinner with his inner circle on Saturday. Every moment accounted for. Every interaction calculated. What if I don't want to go? Emily asked. Irina paused. Then you'll be breaking the terms of your agreement. Mr. Volkov was very clear about expectations. Well, right. Because this was a contract, not a marriage. Emily had signed up for performance, not partnership. She dressed in the clothes Irina had chosen. Gray slacks, silk blouse, blazer that probably cost more than her old couch, and made her way through the mansion's maze of hallways to Adrian's office. Marcus stood outside the door like a sentry. He's expecting you, Marcus said, opening the door without knocking. Adrian's office was all dark wood and leather, the kind of space designed to intimidate. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the grounds. A massive desk dominated the center of the room, covered in papers and laptop screens showing things Emily didn't understand. Adrian sat behind it, reading something on his tablet. He didn't look up when she entered. Sit, he said. Emily sat in one of the chairs across from him, waited. Adrian finished whatever he was reading, set the tablet aside, and finally met her gaze. He looked tired, not just physically, but in a way that went deeper, like exhaustion had seeped into his bones and settled there permanently. How did you sleep? He asked. Fine. A lie, but what else was she supposed to say? That she'd lain awake until 3 in the morning, wondering what she'd gotten herself into. Good, we need to establish ground rules. Adrian pulled out a folder, slid it across the desk. Your credit cards. PIN codes written inside. You have a monthly allowance of $50,000 for personal expenses. Clothes, whatever you need to maintain appearances. Don't buy anything that makes me look cheap. Emily opened the folder. 3 black credit cards, each one heavier than her old debit card had been. $50,000 a month. She'd been living on $4,000. What happens if I spend more? She asked. Don't. But if I do? Adrian's expression didn't change. Then we'll have a conversation about consequences. I doubt you'll enjoy it. Emily set the folder down. Anything else? Several things. Adrian leaned back in his wheelchair. First, this house has rules. You don't enter my wing without invitation. You don't speak to the press under any circumstances. If someone approaches you, you refer them to my media team. You don't discuss our arrangement with anyone. Not your family, not friends, no one. As far as the world is concerned, we're a legitimate couple. Even though everyone knows we're not. Especially because everyone knows we're not. The game only works if we commit to it completely. His fingers drummed against the armrest. Second, public appearances. You'll attend events with me as needed. You'll smile, you'll be charming, You'll give the impression that you're exactly where you want to be. I don't care if you're miserable. I don't care if you hate every second. You will not embarrass me. I wouldn't vopo. Third, Adrian continued, cutting her off. Physical boundaries. We're married on paper, not in practice. I won't touch you beyond what's necessary for appearances. You won't touch me. We maintain separate rooms, separate lives. This is a business arrangement. Keep it that way. Something cold settled in Emily's stomach. She'd expected distance, but hearing it stated so bluntly made it real in a way that yesterday's chaos hadn't. She was married to a man who'd just outlined exactly how much space he planned to keep between them. Understood, she said quietly. Good. Adrian pushed another folder across the desk. These are non-disclosure agreements. Sign them. They cover everything. Our arrangement, my business, anything you might see or hear while you're here. Violation results in legal action and forfeiture of your payment. Emily flipped through the pages. Dense legal language that basically said if she talked, she'd lose everything. She should probably have a lawyer review this, should probably take time to think it through. But she'd already said yes at the altar. This was just making it official. She signed. Adrian took the papers back, barely glanced at them. Marcus will be your security, anywhere you go outside this house. He goes with you, non-negotiable. I don't need a bodyguard. You married me. Yes, you do. He closed the folder. You're dismissed. Emily stood, then hesitated. Adrian? What? Is this really what you want, living like this? For a moment, something flickered across his face, something raw and unguarded. Then it was gone, buried under the same cold mask he'd worn since the altar. What I want stopped mattering a long time ago, Adrian said. This is what works. That's all that matters now. Close the door on your way out. Emily left before she could say something stupid like, I'm sorry, or this doesn't have to be so cold, because Adrian had made his position clear. She was an employee, a tool, something useful but fundamentally replaceable. She wandered the mansion for a while after that, trying to map out her new prison. The house was massive, 30 rooms at least, probably more. Gym, library, indoor pool, spaces she didn't have names for. Staff moved through the halls like ghosts, nodding politely but never stopping to talk. Emily felt like an intruder in her own home. She found the library by accident and stopped in the doorway. Books lined every wall, floor to ceiling, the kind of collection that came from actually reading rather than decorating. Emily ran her fingers along the spines, first editions mixed with paperbacks, classics next to contemporary fiction. No organization she could identify. Just books collected over time by someone who loved them. Those are mine, Emily spun. Adrian had appeared in the doorway, silent despite the wheelchair. He moved into the library with the ease of someone who knew every inch of the space. I didn't mean to intrude, Emily said. You're not. Technically, everything in this house is yours now too, community property. His tone suggested he found that fact deeply annoying. He rolled to one of the shelves, pulled down a worn paperback. You like to read? When I have time. You have time now. Adrian held out the book. Take it. Emily looked at the cover. Crime and Punishment. The spine was cracked, pages dog-eared. Someone had read this dozens of times. Why this one? She asked. Because it's about guilt and redemption. Seemed appropriate. Adrian turned his chair toward the door. Lunch is at 1. Irina will show you to the dining room. Try not to be late. I hate waiting. He left before Emily could respond. She stood there holding the book, trying to figure out what had just happened. Was that kindness, connection, or just Adrian being efficient, giving her something to do so she wouldn't bother him? She took the book back to her room and tried to read, but the words wouldn't stick. Her mind kept circling back to the morning's conversation. The rules, the boundaries. The careful construction of a marriage that was designed to keep them as separate as possible while looking united to everyone else. This was going to be a very long year. Lunch was excruciating. Emily sat across from Adrian in a dining room that could have seated 20, eating food she couldn't taste while he worked through emails on his phone. Neither of them spoke. The silence pressed down like physical weight. Do we have to do this every day? Emily asked finally. Adrian looked up. Do what? Sit here. Pretend to eat together. It's ridiculous. It's expected. The staff talks. Word gets around if we're never seen together. He went back to his phone. You'll get used to it. What if I don't want to get used to it? Then you're going to have a miserable year. Adrian set the phone down, giving her his full attention for the first time since she'd sat down. What did you expect, Emily? That we'd become friends? That this would be easy? I expected basic human interaction. I'm interacting with you right now. You're tolerating my presence. That's not the same thing. Adrian's jaw tightened. You want interaction? Fine, tell me about yourself. Where did you grow up? What's your family like? What do you do for fun when you're not planning events? The questions came rapid fire, almost aggressive, like he was proving a point rather than actually wanting to know. Connecticut, Emily said. Middle-class suburb. 2 sisters, both more successful than me. Parents who are very confused about why I just married someone they've never met. And I don't really have hobbies. I work. That's mostly it. Sounds lonely. Says the man who lives in a mansion by himself and just married a stranger to avoid looking weak. The words came out harsher than Emily intended. She waited for Adrian to explode to put her back in her place. Instead, he smiled. Actually smiled, and it transformed his face into something almost human. Fair point, he said. We're both lonely people playing pretend. At least we're honest about it. Are we? Because I think we're both pretending really hard that this is fine. Adrian's smile faded. It has to be fine. There's no other option. He pushed back from the table. I have meetings this afternoon. Marcus will take you shopping. You need a wardrobe appropriate for your new position. I have clothes. You have clothes appropriate for event planning, not for being my wife. There's a difference. He headed toward the door, then paused. Emily? Yeah? You asked what I want earlier in my office. Adrian's back was to her, shoulders rigid. I want to stop feeling like I'm performing every second of every day. I want to be more than this chair and the things people expect from me. But wanting doesn't change reality, so I stopped wanting and started surviving. You should do the same. He left before Emily could find words. She sat alone in the dining room, surrounded by wealth and emptiness, and wondered if Adrian was right. Maybe wanting was dangerous. Maybe survival was all that mattered. The thought was more depressing than the wedding had been. Shopping with Marcus was surreal. He drove Emily to stores she'd never been able to afford, stood quietly, while sales associates pulled dresses and shoes and accessories she couldn't imagine wearing. Everything was designer. Everything cost more than her rent used to. Marcus paid without blinking, loading bags into the car like this was completely normal. Does Adrian always spend money like this? Emily asked on the drive back. Money's not real to him, Marcus said. It's just a tool. You need clothes to do your job. He's providing the tools. My job? You mean being his wife? Yeah. Marcus glanced at her in the rearview mirror. Look, I've worked for Adrian for 8 years, since before the accident. I know he seems cold, detached, but he's not. Marcus stopped, choosing words carefully. He's not cruel. He's just been hurt too many times to risk it again. By Scarlett? By everyone. Marcus turned onto the private drive leading to the mansion. People see the power, the money, the reputation. They don't see the man. Scarlett claimed she did, but the second things got hard, she ran. You're the third person to do that to him. First his parents, then his business partner, then her. So yeah, he's got walls, but they're there for a reason. Emily absorbed that. 3 betrayals, each one cutting deeper than the last. No wonder Adrian treated her like a potential threat rather than a partner. I'm not going to hurt him, she said quietly. You sure about that? Marcus met her eyes in the mirror. Because from where I'm sitting, you already are. Every time you treat this like a prison sentence instead of a marriage. Every time you remind him this is temporary. He knows it's not real. But having it confirmed constantly probably doesn't feel great. The words hit harder than Emily expected. She'd been so focused on her own discomfort, her own displacement, that she hadn't considered how her attitude might be affecting Adrian. He'd married her out of desperation, yes. But he'd still married her, still brought her into his home, still gave her access to a life she couldn't have imagined, and she'd been treating it like a punishment. I don't know how to do this, Emily admitted. I don't know how to be what he needs. Then figure it out, Marcus said, because you signed up for this. And Adrian's got enough people in his life who disappoint him. Don't be another one. That night, Emily couldn't sleep. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling, thinking about Marcus's words, about Adrian's walls, about the fact that she'd agreed to a year of this and 3 days in, she was already failing at the one thing he'd asked for. Don't embarrass him. Around midnight, she gave up on sleep and wandered downstairs. The house was dark except for security lights casting long shadows across marble floors. Emily found herself heading toward the library, drawn by the promise of distraction. The light was on when she got there. Adrian sat by the window, reading, a glass of something amber beside him. He looked up when she entered, expression unreadable. "Can't sleep?" he asked. "Something like that." Emily hesitated in the doorway. "I can leave if you want privacy." "I'm in the library. Privacy's not really the priority." Adrian gestured to the other chair. "Sit if you want." Emily sat. They stayed like that for a while, not talking, just existing in the same space. It should have been awkward. Somehow it wasn't. Maybe because the darkness gave them both permission to drop the act. "Marcus said, 'I'm hurting you,'" Emily said eventually, "by treating this like it's temporary." Adrian's expression didn't change. "Marcus talks too much. Is he wrong? Does it matter?" Adrian closed his book. "You are temporary. We both know it. Pretending otherwise just makes it worse when you leave. But what if I didn't treat it like a countdown? What if I tried to actually be here instead of just surviving until it's over?" "Why would you do that?" Emily thought about it. "Because I'm tired of being invisible, and maybe you're tired of being alone. And this doesn't have to be quite so miserable for both of us." Adrian studied her face for a long moment. "What are you suggesting?" "I don't know, maybe just trying. Being actual roommates instead of strangers. Having conversations that aren't just logistics. I'm here for a year whether either of us likes it. We could make it bearable." "Bearable," Adrian repeated. "That's a low bar." "Seems appropriate for where we're starting." Something almost like amusement crossed Adrian's face. "You're strange, you know that? Most people in your position would be trying to extract more money or leverage. You're suggesting we be friends." "I'm suggesting we be human to each other. Friends might be optimistic." Adrian picked up his glass, took a slow sip. "Fine. We can try bearable, but don't expect miracles, Emily. I'm not good at this." "At what?" "Letting people in." "Yeah, I noticed." Emily stood. "I'm going back to bed. Thanks for not kicking me out of the library." "It's your library too," Adrian said. "Technically." Emily was almost to the door when Adrian spoke again. "Emily?" She turned. "Yeah? Thank you. For trying. Most people wouldn't." His voice was quiet, almost vulnerable. "I know this isn't what you signed up for." "It's not what either of us signed up for," Emily said. "But we're here anyway. Might as well make the best of it." She left before Adrian could respond, climbed the stairs back to her room with Marcus's words echoing in her head. Don't be another person who disappoints him. Maybe she couldn't be what Adrian needed. Maybe this whole thing was doomed from the start. But she could try to be decent, could try to make this year less awful for both of them. It wasn't much, but it was better than the alternative. The next few days passed in a strange rhythm. Emily attended the events Adrian required, played her part with increasing ease. She smiled at his business partners, made small talk with dangerous people, wore the expensive clothes like armor. In public, they looked like a couple. Not affectionate, but united. Believable enough that people stopped asking obvious questions. In private, things started shifting. Small changes, barely noticeable. Adrian began eating breakfast in the dining room instead of his office. Emily joined him, and they'd talk about nothing important. Books, news, the weather. Meaningless conversation that somehow made the house feel less empty. They found a routine. Emily would read in the library in the evenings. Adrian would join her eventually, working on his laptop while she turned pages. They didn't talk much during those hours. Didn't need to. Just being in the same space felt like progress. Thursday came too fast. The charity gala was being held at one of Manhattan's oldest hotels, the kind of place that dripped old money and older power. Emily spent the afternoon getting ready under Irina's supervision, hair styled into something elegant, makeup professionally applied, dress that probably cost more than her car used to be worth. When she came downstairs, Adrian was waiting in the foyer. He'd changed into a tuxedo that was perfectly tailored to accommodate his wheelchair. He looked dangerous and untouchable, and very much like a man who commanded empires. "You look good," he said. "You sound surprised." "I'm perpetually surprised by competence. It's rare." Adrian rolled toward the door where Marcus was waiting with the car. "Ready?" "Define ready."
Button.
"Willing to spend the next 4 hours pretending you're madly in love with me, while some of the worst people in New York pretend to care about charity." Emily laughed despite herself. "When you put it that way, I can't wait." The gala was exactly what Adrian had described. 500 people in formal wear, drinking champagne that cost more than most people's monthly rent, writing checks to causes they'd forget about by morning. Emily stayed close to Adrian playing her part, but she started noticing things. The way people looked at him. Not with respect, with fear. The way conversations stopped when he approached. The careful dance everyone performed around him. Adrian was powerful, yes, but he was also profoundly isolated. "You're quiet," Adrian said during a lull between conversations. "Just observing." "And?" "These people are terrified of you." Adrian's expression didn't change. "Good. Fear's useful." "Is it?" Emily turned to face him fully. "Because from where I'm standing, it just looks lonely." Before Adrian could respond, someone approached. An older man, silver-haired, expensive suit, smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Adrian," he said, "I was hoping to run into you. We need to discuss the waterfront development." "Not here, Vincent." "I think here is perfect." Vincent's gaze slid to Emily. "Unless your new wife is involved in your business decisions? I wasn't aware you'd started bringing civilians into operational discussions." The dismissal in his tone was clear. Emily wasn't worth acknowledging, just decoration on Adrian's arm. "Emily is my wife," Adrian said quietly, "which means she's not a civilian. She's family. And if you ever speak about her like that again, we won't have any discussions, operational or otherwise. Clear?" Vincent's smile froze. "Of course. My apologies, Mrs. Volkov." He retreated fast. Emily stared at Adrian, thrown by the sudden defense. "You didn't have to do that," she said. "Yes, I did." Adrian's voice was flat. "You're mine now. That means something. People need to understand that disrespecting you is the same as disrespecting me." "I'm yours," Emily repeated. "That's a weird way to put it." "It's accurate." "It makes me sound like property." Adrian's jaw tightened. "That's not what I meant." "Well, then what did you mean?" He didn't answer, just turned his wheelchair toward the exit. "I need some air. Come on." They found a balcony overlooking the city. Manhattan sprawled below them, lights stretching to the horizon. Adrian positioned himself near the railing, staring out at the view. Emily stood beside him, waiting. "I'm not good with words," Adrian said finally. "I say things wrong, make them sound colder than I mean them. But when I said you're mine, I meant—" He stopped, frustrated. "I meant you're under my protection, that you matter, that I won't let people treat you like you're nothing just because they think you're temporary." Emily felt something shift in her chest. "Thank you." "Don't thank me. It's just pragmatic. If people think they can disrespect you without consequences, my reputation suffers." "Right, pragmatic." Emily leaned against the railing. "You know, you could just admit you were being decent without making it about strategy." "I could, but I won't. Because that would mean admitting you care." "I don't care." Adrian said it too fast. "I'm just maintaining appearances." "Sure you are." Emily turned to face him. "Adrian, it's okay if this is becoming more than business. It doesn't make you weak." "Yes, it does." His voice was hard. "Every time I've let myself care about someone, they've used it against me. So I stopped. And I'm not starting again just because you've decided we should be friends." The words stung more than Emily expected. She'd thought they were making progress, thought the past few days meant something. But Adrian had just reminded her exactly where they stood, on opposite sides of a transaction that would end the second it stopped being useful to him. "Message received," Emily said quietly. "I'll remember my place." She walked back inside before Adrian could respond. Spent the rest of this gala smiling and nodding and playing her part while something cold settled in her chest. This was a mistake. Trying to connect with Adrian was a mistake. Marcus had been wrong. She wasn't hurting Adrian by keeping distance. She was protecting herself from someone who'd made it abundantly clear he didn't want anything real. The drive home was silent. Adrian stared out the window. Emily did the same. When they arrived at the mansion, she headed straight for her room without saying goodnight. She was halfway up the stairs when Adrian called out, "Emily, wait." She stopped but didn't turn around. "I'm sorry," Adrian said. "That came out wrong. I didn't mean—" He exhaled roughly. "I don't know how to do this, any of this. You're trying to make things better, and I keep pushing you away because that's all I know how to do anymore." Emily turned slowly. Adrian sat at the bottom of the stairs, looking up at her with an expression that was finally devastatingly honest. "I'm scared," he admitted, "of letting you matter, of forgetting this is temporary, because when you leave, it's going to hurt, and I don't think I can survive that again. So I keep you at a distance. I say things I don't mean. And I'm sorry. You don't deserve that." Emily came back down the stairs, sat on the step beside his wheelchair, so they were at eye level. "I'm scared too," she said, "of becoming someone you tolerate instead of someone you chose, of spending a year being invisible in your life, of walking away with money but nothing else. So maybe we're both terrified of the same thing." "What thing?" "That this might actually become real, and real things can hurt you." Adrian was quiet for a long moment. Then he reached out and took her hand. His palm was warm against hers, steady in a way she hadn't expected. "Bearable," he said. "That's what you offered. Maybe we can aim for that. Not real, not fake, just bearable. Together." Emily squeezed his hand. "Together sounds good." They sat like that for a while, holding hands at the bottom of a staircase in a mansion that felt slightly less empty than it had that morning. It wasn't romance. Wasn't even friendship yet. But it was something. A crack in Adrian's walls. A reason for Emily to stay instead of just surviving. Maybe bearable was enough for now. The shift between them was subtle at first. Small changes that could have been coincidence if Emily wasn't paying attention. Adrian started asking her opinion on things that didn't matter. What to order for dinner, whether the library needed better lighting, if the new security system was overkill. Questions that suggested he valued her input, or at least didn't mind hearing it. Emily stopped treating the mansion like a hotel she was trapped in and started making it feel less sterile. She moved books around in the library, organizing them by genre instead of whatever chaotic system Adrian had been using. Put fresh flowers in the dining room because the space was too cold without them. Small acts of claiming territory that Adrian never commented on but also never undid. 2 weeks after the gala, Emily woke to shouting from somewhere in the house. She pulled on a robe and followed the noise to Adrian's wing, the space she'd been explicitly told not to enter without invitation. The door to what looked like a private gym was open. Inside, Adrian was alone, trying to pull himself up on parallel bars while his wheelchair sat empty a few feet away. He made it halfway before his arms gave out, and he crashed down hard. The sound of his body hitting the mat made Emily flinch. "Damn it!" Adrian's voice was raw with frustration. He tried again, got maybe 3 inches higher, fell again. "Damn it, damn it!" Emily should have left, should have respected his privacy. Instead, she walked in. "How long have you been doing this?" she asked. Adrian's head snapped up. His face was flushed, hair stuck to his forehead with sweat, eyes wild with something between rage and humiliation. "Get out!" "How long, Adrian?" "I said get out!" He tried to pull himself up again, failed, slammed his fist into the mat. "I don't need an audience for this." Emily crossed to where his wheelchair sat and rolled it closer. "You've been at this for hours, haven't you?" "What does it matter?" "It matters because you're going to hurt yourself." She positioned the chair beside him. "Come on, let me help you up." "I don't need your help." Adrian's voice cracked. "I don't need anyone's help. I can do this myself." "Okay, then do it." Adrian glared at her, then turned back to the bars, pulled himself up with everything he had, made it a foot off the ground before his arms started shaking. He held for maybe 5 seconds before gravity won and he fell again, harder this time. The sound that came out of him wasn't quite a scream, more like something breaking. Emily knelt beside him. "Adrian, don't." He turned his face away from her. "Don't look at me like that, like I'm pathetic." "I don't think you're pathetic. I think you're hurting yourself because you're too stubborn to admit this is hard." "It shouldn't be this hard." Adrian's voice dropped to something barely audible. It's been 2 years. 2 years and I still can't. He stopped, jaw clenched so tight, Emily thought he might crack teeth. I used to be able to do anything. Run, fight, control every situation I walked into. And now I can't even stand up without help. Can't walk across a room. Can't be the man I was. So be someone different. Adrian looked at her finally, eyes red-rimmed. What? You can't be who you were. That person doesn't exist anymore. So stop trying to resurrect him and figure out who you are now. Emily held his gaze. You're still powerful, still terrifying when you want to be, still running an empire from a wheelchair. That's not weakness. That's adaptation. You don't understand. You're right. I don't understand what you've been through, but I understand feeling like you're supposed to be someone you're not anymore. Emily sat down on the mat beside him. After my dad died, my mom kept setting his place at dinner for 6 months. Like if she just pretended hard enough, he'd come back. And I kept trying to be the daughter he wanted. Successful, confident, someone who had her life together. But I couldn't do it. I wasn't that person. Maybe I never was. And it took me years to stop hating myself for it. Adrian was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, Your father died? Heart attack. I was 23. He collapsed at my sister's wedding, and by the time the ambulance got there, Emily stopped, surprised by how much it still hurt to say out loud. Anyway, I spent years trying to be what he would have wanted instead of figuring out what I wanted. So I get it. The ghost of who you used to be is a lot harder to compete with than any actual person. I'm sorry, Adrian said, about your father. I'm sorry about the accident and Scarlett, and everyone who made you feel like you're less than you are. Adrian looked at her with an expression Emily couldn't quite read. Then he held out his hand. Help me up? Emily took his hand and helped him back into the wheelchair. His weight was solid against her, and she was suddenly aware of how close they were, how his hand lingered in hers a second longer than necessary before he pulled away. Thank you, Adrian said quietly. For what? For not leaving. Most people would have. He rolled toward the door, then stopped. Emily, what you said about being someone different, how do you do that? How do you let go of who you were? Emily thought about it. I don't think you let go completely. You just stop measuring yourself against a person who doesn't exist anymore and start building from where you actually are. It's not dramatic. It's just daily, choosing present over past over and over until it becomes automatic. Sounds exhausting. It is, but it's better than the alternative. Adrian nodded slowly. I have physical therapy 3 times a week. It's been difficult to keep going when progress is so slow. Do you want company? I could come with you, if that would help. Why would you do that? Because we're trying bearable, remember? And you being alone while you fight your body doesn't sound very bearable. Emily met his gaze. Plus, I'm nosy. I want to see what physical therapy for a crime boss looks like. Adrian almost smiled. It's mostly embarrassing and painful, but sure, you can come, if you really want to. I really want to. Something passed between them then. Not attraction exactly. More like recognition. 2 people who'd spent so long pretending to be fine that they'd forgotten what honesty felt like. I should shower, Adrian said. I probably smell like failure and sweat. You smell like hard work and stubbornness. There's a difference. Is there? Yeah, one's pathetic. The other's just human. Adrian left without responding, but Emily saw the way his shoulders relaxed slightly. She stayed in the gym for a while after, looking at the parallel bars and the mats and the evidence of how hard Adrian had been pushing himself when no one was watching. He wanted so badly to be strong again, to be whole. And Emily understood that wanting even if she couldn't fix it. She found him in the library that evening, laptop open, glass of whiskey at his elbow. He looked up when she entered. I'm sorry about this morning, he said. You shouldn't have seen me like that. Why not? Because I might realize you're human? Because it was weak. It wasn't weak, it was real. Emily settled into her usual chair. And I'd rather see you real than perfect. Adrian studied her for a moment. You're very strange, Emily Carter. Emily Volkov, she corrected without thinking. The silence that followed was sharp. Emily realized what she'd said, felt her face heat. I just meant Legally, that's my name now. I wasn't. I know what you meant. Adrian's voice was neutral, but something flickered behind his eyes. You don't have to use it if you don't want to. Do you want me to? I want you to do whatever makes this bearable for you. Emily set down her book. Adrian, can I ask you something, and will you give me an honest answer? Depends on the question. What do you actually want from me? Not the public appearances or the contract terms. What do you want from this year? Adrian leaned back in his wheelchair. I want to not feel completely alone in my own house. I want someone who doesn't look at me like I'm either a monster or a tragedy. I want conversations that aren't about business or strategy or maintaining power. He paused. I want what you offered. Bearable. Maybe something close to normal, whatever that means. This normal's overrated, Emily said. But I can do close to normal. I think we're already doing it. Are we? Yeah, this. Right now, sitting in the same room, talking like people instead of strangers following a script. She pulled her knees up to her chest. It's nice. I like it. You like sitting in silence with a man who pays you to pretend to be his wife? I like sitting with someone who reads Dostoevsky for fun and gets angry at parallel bars and admits when he's scared. Emily met his gaze. The paying me part is honestly the least interesting thing about you. Adrian looked away first. You're making this complicated. How? By making me want things I shouldn't want. His voice was low. By being kind when I don't deserve it. By making me forget this is temporary. Emily's heart was suddenly beating too fast. What if it doesn't have to be temporary? Don't. Adrian's voice turned sharp. Don't do that. Don't make this into something it's not. I'm not. Yes, you are. You're confusing gratitude with something else. Or maybe you're just bored. But this isn't real, Emily. It can't be real, so stop pretending it could be. The words landed like blows. Emily stood, wrapped her arms around herself. Right, sorry, I forgot my place. That's not what I meant. Isn't it? She moved toward the door. You made the rules very clear, Adrian. Business arrangement, nothing more. I'll try to remember that. She left before he could respond. Made it to her room before the tears came, which was stupid. She had no right to cry. Adrian had been honest from the start about what this was. She was the one who'd started imagining it could be something different. Emily spent the next 3 days avoiding him. Took her meals in her room, skipped the library, attended the required public events, but left immediately after. Adrian didn't push, didn't ask what was wrong, just let the distance grow between them like it had been inevitable all along. On the 4th day, Marcus knocked on her door. Boss wants to see you, he said. His office. Now. Emily considered refusing, but that felt childish, and she'd been playing childish for long enough. She followed Marcus downstairs, prepared herself for whatever lecture Adrian had decided she needed. Adrian was at his desk, looking at something on his computer. He didn't look up when she entered. Sit, he said. Emily sat. Waited. Adrian finally turned to face her. I've been an ass, he said flatly. Is that an apology? It's a statement of fact. The apology is this. I'm sorry for what I said in the library, for pushing you away when you were trying to connect, for making you feel like your presence here is just transactional when it's... He stopped, jaw tight. When it's become more than that. Emily's breath caught. More than what? More than business, more than convenient. You've been here a month and you've already changed things. Made this house feel less empty. Made me feel less... Adrian stopped again, frustrated with himself. I don't have the words for this. I'm not good at this. Try anyway. I'm lonely, Adrian said finally. I've been lonely for so long that I forgot what the alternative felt like. And then you showed up and started being kind and funny and refusing to treat me like I'm made of glass. And suddenly I remember. I remember what it's like to want someone's company, to look forward to seeing them, to care if they're upset. He met her gaze. I care that you've been avoiding me, and that scares the hell out of me because caring gives you power to hurt me. I don't want to hurt you. I know, but you will, eventually, because this is temporary, and I'm an idiot for forgetting that. Adrian rolled closer. But I don't want to spend the next 11 months pushing you away because I'm scared of month 12. So I'm asking, can we try again? Can we go back to bearable and maybe aim for something slightly better? Emily felt something loosen in her chest. What's slightly better than bearable? I don't know. Tolerable? Occasionally pleasant? I'm making this up as I go. How about friends? Emily suggested. Real ones, not just roommates who occasionally talk. Friends? Adrian repeated slowly, like he was testing the word. I can try that. You have to actually talk to me, though. Not just logistics, real conversations. About what? I don't know. Normal things. What you're reading, what you did before the accident, why you hate mushrooms so much that you make Irina remove them from every dish. Adrian blinked. How did you know about the mushrooms? I pay attention. Emily leaned forward. And I want to know things about you. Real things. Not just the reputation or the business. You. Why? Because you're interesting and complicated, and you make me want to understand you. She held his gaze. Is that allowed? Or is knowing you also against the rules? There are no rules anymore, Adrian said quietly. I don't know what we're doing, but the rules weren't working anyway. So yes. Friends, real conversations, knowing each other, we can try that. Emily smiled, and Adrian's expression softened in a way she'd never seen before. Almost tender. I go to physical therapy tomorrow, he said. 2 p.m, if you still want to come. I still want to come. It won't be pretty. I'm going to struggle and probably swear a lot. Good. I like you better when you're honest about struggling. Something like relief crossed Adrian's face. Okay then. Friends who watch each other struggle. That's sufficiently depressing to feel authentic. We're a mess, Emily agreed by sweat, but at least we're honest about it. Physical therapy was brutal to watch. Emily sat in the corner of the facility while Adrian worked with a therapist named James, who pushed him through exercises that looked agonizing. Leg lifts that barely cleared the table, resistance work that left Adrian's hands shaking, balance exercises on a mat that ended with him flat on his back more often than not. But Adrian kept going, swearing, yes, frustrated, definitely. But he didn't quit. And every time he fell or failed, James just said, again, and Adrian did it again. On the drive home, Adrian was quiet. Emily didn't push, just let him sit with whatever he was feeling. Thank you for coming, Adrian said finally. Thank you for letting me. Did it bother you, seeing me like that? No, it made me respect you more. Emily turned to look at him. You could have given up. A lot of people would have. But you keep fighting even when progress is slow. That's not weakness. Feels like it sometimes. I know, but feelings aren't facts. Adrian almost smiled. You sound like James. He says that constantly. Smart man. They fell into easier routines after that. Emily went to physical therapy twice a week, sitting in her corner while Adrian worked. They had breakfast together every morning, talking about nothing important. Spent evenings in the library, sometimes reading, sometimes just talking until midnight about books and childhood and the specific ways their families had failed them. Adrian told her about growing up with parents who valued power over love, who'd raised him to be ruthless and then abandoned him when the accident made him less useful. About the business partner who'd tried to stage a coup while Adrian was in the hospital, thinking he was too weak to fight back. About Scarlett, who'd promised forever and delivered humiliation instead. Emily told him about being the middle daughter no one noticed, about her father's death and her mother's grief and the string of relationships that had fizzled because she'd never been quite interesting enough to keep someone's attention. About the loneliness of being professionally competent but personally forgettable. You're not forgettable, Adrian said one night. They were in the library. Rain drummed against the windows. Emily had her feet tucked under her on the couch. Adrian sat across from her, whiskey in hand. That's nice of you to say, Emily replied. It's not nice. It's true. Adrian stopped, choosing words carefully. You're the kind of person who sneaks up on someone. At first glance, there's nothing obvious, nothing that demands attention. But then you start talking and suddenly you're the most interesting person in the room. You see things other people miss. You're kind without being soft, strong without being hard, and anyone who didn't notice that wasn't paying attention. Emily's throat felt tight. Adrian, I'm not finished. He set down his glass. You asked me once what I wanted from this year, and I told you bearable. But that was a lie. Or maybe it was true when I said it and stopped being true somewhere along the way. He met her gaze. I want you to stay.
I am staying for 11 more months. No.
I mean after. I want you to stay after the year is up. Adrian's voice was steady, but his hands betrayed him, gripping the arms of his wheelchair too tight. I know that wasn't the deal. I know you signed up for 12 months and a payout, but somewhere between the wedding and now, you became the best part of my day, and the thought of you leaving makes me feel like I'm about to lose something I didn't know I needed. Emily couldn't breathe. You're saying you want this to be real? I'm saying it already is real, at least for me, and I don't know what to do with that because I swore I wouldn't let anyone matter again, and you went and mattered anyway. Adrian's jaw tightened. So I'm asking, is there any possibility that you might want to stay? Not for the money, not because of the contract, but because you want to? Emily's heart was pounding so hard she thought it might crack ribs. She'd spent the last 6 weeks trying not to fall for Adrian while falling anyway, trying to keep distance while closing it, trying to remember this was temporary while hoping it might not be. I don't know, she said honestly. I don't know what I want. Adrian nodded slowly. Okay. That's it? Just okay? What do you want me to say? That I'll wait? That I'll keep hoping? He turned his chair toward the window. I'm not good at this, Emily. I don't know how to want something without trying to control it. So yes. Okay. You don't know. That's an answer. It's not the answer you wanted. No, but it's honest. I respect that. Emily stood, moved to where Adrian sat staring out at the rain. She put her hand on his shoulder, felt him tense under her touch. Ask me again in 6 months, she said quietly. Adrian turned to look at her. Why 6 months? Because right now I don't know if what I'm feeling is real or if it's just gratitude for being seen. I don't know if I love you or if I love the idea of you. And I won't do that to either of us. Pretend I'm sure when I'm not. She squeezed his shoulder. But in 6 months, I'll know. And whatever I feel then will be real. Can you live with that? Do I have a choice? Yes. You could end this now. Send me away. Find someone who knows what they want. Adrian covered her hand with his. I don't want someone who knows what they want. I want you. Uncertain and honest and trying to figure it out. So yes. 6 months. I can wait that long. Emily bent down and kissed his forehead before she could stop herself. Adrian went completely still. When she pulled back, his eyes were wide. What was that? He asked. Affection. Friends are allowed to show affection. Are they? I don't actually know. I've never been good at friendship. Emily stepped back before she could do something stupid like kiss him properly. Good night, Adrian. Good night, Emily. She made it to the door before Adrian called her name again. Yeah? Thank you for being honest, for not lying just to make me feel better. His voice was soft. It means something. Emily nodded and left before the moment could get any heavier. She climbed the stairs to her room with her heart racing and her head spinning and the distinct feeling that she'd just crossed a line she couldn't uncross. 6 months. She'd given herself 6 months to figure out if what she felt was real. But standing there in the hallway outside her room, Emily was starting to suspect she already knew the answer. She was falling in love with Adrian Volkov. And that was either the best or worst thing that had ever happened to her. The 6-month deadline hung between them like weather, always present, occasionally noticed, impossible to ignore. Emily found herself measuring time differently now. Not in days or weeks, but in moments that made her chest tight. Adrian laughing at something she said, his hand brushing hers when he passed her a book, the way he looked at her sometimes when he thought she wasn't paying attention. 3 months in, and Emily still didn't have an answer. Or maybe she did, and she was just too scared to admit it. They were having breakfast when Marcus appeared in the doorway, expression grim. Boss, we have a problem. Adrian set down his coffee. What kind of problem? The kind with red hair and a grudge. Marcus glanced at Emily. Scarlett's outside. She's demanding to see you. Emily felt her stomach drop. Adrian's face went carefully blank. Tell her to leave, he said. Tried that. She says she's not going anywhere until you talk to her. Then call the police. Adrian, Emily said quietly, maybe you should hear what she wants. I know what she wants. She wants to cause problems. That's all she's ever wanted. Adrian's knuckles were white around his coffee cup. I'm not playing her games. What if she doesn't leave? What if she makes a scene? Emily leaned forward.
Better to deal with her on your terms than let her control the situation.
Adrian studied Emily's face for a long moment. Then he turned to Marcus. Fine. Bring her to my office, but Emily stays with me. You want me there? Emily asked. Yes, because whatever Scarlett's planning, she's going to try to use you against me. Better you hear it directly than through some twisted version later. He pushed back from the table. Come on, let's get this over with. Scarlett Hayes was exactly as beautiful as Emily remembered from the wedding. Red dress, perfect makeup, the kind of face that photographers probably fought over. She stood in Adrian's office like she owned it, examining his bookshelves with the casual entitlement of someone who'd been here before. She turned when they entered. Her smile was sharp enough to cut. Adrian, you look well. Wheelchair suits you. Scarlett, Adrian's voice was flat. You have 5 minutes. Use them wisely. Still so cold. Scarlett's gaze slid to Emily. And this must be the replacement. Emily, isn't it? The event planner who got promoted? How romantic. What do you want, Scarlett? Adrian interrupted. I want to talk to my fiancé. Ex-fiancé. You lost that title when you walked out on our wedding. Did I? Scarlett moved closer, her heels clicking on the hardwood. Because as I recall, we never officially ended our engagement. You just grabbed the nearest warm body and married her out of spite. Out of necessity. There's a difference. Is there? Scarlett's eyes narrowed. Tell me, Adrian, does your new wife know why I left? Does she know what you did? Emily felt Adrian tense beside her. Don't, he said quietly. Don't what? Don't tell her the truth? Scarlett smiled. I think she deserves to know what kind of man she married. Or do you want to keep pretending you're some misunderstood hero instead of... Get out. Adrian's voice was deadly quiet. Not until I say what I came to say. Scarlett turned to Emily fully. He threatened me. The night before the wedding, said if I ever tried to leave him, he'd destroy everything I cared about. My family's business, my reputation, my future. He said he owned me, and I'd better remember that. Emily looked at Adrian. His face was a mask, but she could see the tension in his jaw, the way his hands gripped the wheelchair arms. Is that true? Emily asked. Parts of it. Adrian's voice was tight. I told her she'd made commitments to my organization, that walking away would have consequences. I never said I owned her. You said I was yours, Scarlett shot back. That marrying you meant I belonged to you. Same thing. It's not the same thing, and you know it. Adrian's gaze never left Scarlett's face. You weren't some innocent victim. You knew exactly what you were signing up for. You pursued me, not the other way around. And when the accident happened and I became less useful to your ambitions, you decided to bail. So yes, I reminded you that agreements in my world don't come with exit clauses. Sue me. You're a monster, Scarlett said. I'm a businessman who doesn't like being used. There's a difference. Adrian rolled his chair forward slightly. Now tell me what you really want, because you didn't come here to rehash ancient history. You came here for something specific. Scarlett's expression shifted. Calculation replaced performance. I want my settlement. Your what? The money you promised me. $2 million upon marriage, another $3 million when we'd been married a year. That was the agreement. Adrian laughed. Actually laughed. You think I'm going to pay you for a wedding that never happened? I think you're going to pay me for the humiliation of being replaced by a nobody. Scarlett's voice turned sharp. I've spent 3 months dealing with questions, with people's pity, with everyone knowing that Adrian Volkov chose some random event planner over me. My reputation is in ruins. The least you can do is compensate me for the damage. The least I can do, Adrian repeated slowly, is absolutely nothing. You left me. You humiliated me. And now you want me to pay you for it? That's impressive, even for you. Fine. Scarlett pulled out her phone. Then maybe I'll just tell everyone the truth about your new marriage, about how it started, about the contract. I'm sure the press would love that story. Emily's heart stopped. Adrian went very still. You wouldn't, he said quietly. Wouldn't I? You think I don't have proof? I know people in your organization, Adrian, people who talk. I know about the $5 million. I know it's a 1-year deal. I know you grabbed her because you were desperate and she was convenient. Scarlett's smile was vicious. So here's the new deal. You give me my settlement, or I make sure everyone knows your marriage is as fake as your concern for anyone but yourself." The silence that followed was suffocating. Emily could feel her pulse in her throat, could see the calculations happening behind Adrian's eyes. He was weighing options, measuring consequences, deciding how much damage Scarlett could actually do. "Okay," Adrian said finally. Emily's head snapped toward him. "What?" "Okay, I'll give you the settlement." Adrian's voice was calm, businesslike. "But not 2 million, you get 500,000. Take it or leave it." "That's insulting." "That's generous considering you're blackmailing me. 500,000, or I call your bluff and let you tell whoever you want whatever story makes you feel important. But consider this. The second you go public with accusations about my marriage, I go public with documentation of every shady thing your family's company has done in the last 5 years. And trust me, there's a lot. Your father's business will be under investigation within 24 hours. So yes, 500,000. Final offer." Scarlett's expression cycled through rage and calculation before settling on resigned acceptance. "Fine, but I want it in cash. Marcus will arrange a wire transfer. You'll have it by end of business today." Adrian's tone made it clear the conversation was over. "Now get out of my house." Scarlett looked at Emily one more time. "Good luck. You're going to need it with him." She left in a swirl of expensive perfume and barely contained fury. Marcus escorted her out. The door closed behind them with a decisive click. Emily stared at Adrian. "You just paid her off. I just made a problem go away. There's a difference." "You could have called her bluff. I could have done a lot of things." Adrian rolled to the window, stared out at nothing. "But the truth is, she wasn't bluffing. She has contacts. She could make this messy, and I don't want messy. Not right now. Because it would damage your reputation? Because it would hurt you." Adrian turned to face her. "If she goes public, every news outlet in New York will be running stories about how I bought a wife, how you're just another transaction, how our whole marriage is a sham. And yes, people already suspect that. But suspicion is different from confirmation. Suspicion allows for plausible deniability. Confirmation destroys that." Emily felt something crack in her chest. "You paid her to protect me. I paid her to protect us both. Don't make it more than it is." "It is more. You just spent $500,000 to keep me from being humiliated. That's not nothing." Adrian's expression was unreadable. "I told you once that you're mine. That still applies. No one gets to hurt you without consequences. Not Scarlett, not anyone." "I'm not yours, Adrian. I'm not property." "I know that." His voice was tight. "That came out wrong. What I meant was, you're under my protection. You're my responsibility, and I take my responsibilities seriously." "Is that all I am? A responsibility?" Adrian was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "You know you're more than that." "Do I? Because you keep pushing me away every time we get close to admitting this is real." "Because it can't be real." Adrian's voice rose. "Don't you understand that? Every time I let someone matter, they destroy me. My parents, my partner, Scarlett, everyone I've ever trusted has used that trust against me. So yes, I push you away. Because you're temporary, Emily. You're going to leave in 9 months, and I'm trying very hard not to forget that. What if I don't want to be temporary? You don't know what you want. You said so yourself." "I said that 3 months ago. Things change." "Do they?" Adrian's eyes were dark, challenging. "Or are you just confusing Stockholm Syndrome with feelings? You're stuck here, playing a role, and I'm the only person you interact with regularly. That's not love. That's just proximity and loneliness." The words hit like a slap. Emily took a step back. "That's what you think this is? Me being lonely?" "I think you're a good person who's trying to make the best of a difficult situation. And I think you've convinced yourself that what you're feeling is real because the alternative, that you're trapped in a fake marriage with someone who can't give you what you need, is too depressing to face. You don't get to tell me what I'm feeling. Someone has to, because you're lying to yourself, Emily. You don't love me. You love the idea of me. You love being seen and valued for the first time in your life. But that's not the same thing as actually loving the person I am." Emily felt tears burning behind her eyes. "You're wrong." "Am I? Then tell me. What do you love about me?
Specifically, not the money or the lifestyle or the fact that I pay attention to you. What actual thing about Adrian Volkov do you love? Emily opened her mouth, closed it. Her mind was racing, but the words wouldn't come, and Adrian's expression shifted into something that looked like resignation. That's what I thought, he said quietly. You should go. I have work to do. Adrian, please, Emily, just go. She went, walked out of the office with her heart in pieces and her thoughts in chaos, made it to the library before she started crying, angry tears that she couldn't stop and didn't fully understand. Adrian was wrong. He had to be wrong. What she felt wasn't just loneliness or gratitude or Stockholm Syndrome. It was real. It was, except she couldn't articulate it, couldn't name the specific things about him that made her heart race. And maybe that meant Adrian was right. Maybe she'd just convinced herself she was falling in love because the alternative was admitting she'd sold a year of her life to play dress-up in a mansion with a man who saw her as a business expense. Emily stayed in the library for hours, trying to read, failing, just staring at pages until the words blurred. When Irina came to get her for dinner, Emily sent her away. She wasn't ready to sit across from Adrian and pretend everything was fine. Around 10 that night, Marcus appeared. "Boss wants to see you," he said. "Tell him I'm not available." Marcus leaned against the doorframe. "He's been in his gym for 4 hours. Won't stop. Won't take a break. I think he's trying to hurt himself." Emily was on her feet before she could think better of it. She followed Marcus to Adrian's private gym, pushed through the door without knocking. Adrian was on the parallel bars again, pulling himself up and falling over and over. His shirt was soaked with sweat. His arms were shaking. He didn't look up when Emily entered. "How long are you planning to do this?" Emily asked. "Until I can stand." Adrian pulled himself up, held for 3 seconds, collapsed. "Until I'm not useless." "You're not useless." "I'm not enough either." He tried again, fell harder this time. The sound of his body hitting the mat made Emily flinch. "Not enough to keep Scarlett. Not enough to give you what you need. Not enough to be the man I used to be." Emily crossed to where he lay on the mat, breathing hard. She sat down beside him. "Adrian, stop." "Why? So I can face the fact that I'm stuck like this? That nothing I do will ever be enough?" "Stop because you're going to hurt yourself. Because this isn't about physical therapy anymore. It's about punishment." Adrian rolled onto his back, stared at the ceiling. "Maybe I deserve punishment." "For what?" "For dragging you into my mess. For making you play this role. For—" His voice cracked. "For caring about you when I promised myself I wouldn't." Emily's breath caught. "Adrian, I lied earlier, in my office, when I said you were just confusing loneliness with feelings. I lied because pushing you away is easier than admitting I've already fallen for you." He turned his head to look at her. "I love you, Emily, and that terrifies me, because everyone I've ever loved has left. And I know you're going to leave too. But I love you anyway, and I don't know what to do with that." Tears were streaming down Emily's face. "You idiot! You complete idiot! I know. You love me?" "Unfortunately, yes." Emily leaned down and kissed him. Not gently, not tentatively, just kissed him like she'd been wanting to for months, pouring everything she couldn't articulate into the contact. Adrian froze for half a second, then kissed her back with a desperation that made her chest ache. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Emily pressed her forehead to his. "You asked me what I love about you," she said, "and I couldn't answer because there's too much. I love that you're terrified and do things anyway. I love that you push yourself until you break because giving up isn't in your vocabulary. I love that you read Dostoevsky and pretend it doesn't wreck you. I love that you're mean and honest and vulnerable when you think no one's looking. I love the way you defend me without thinking about it. The way you let me see you struggle. The way you—" "Okay," Adrian interrupted softly. "Okay, I get it. No, you don't. Because you still think I'm going to leave, and I'm not. I'm staying, Adrian, not because of the contract or the money or because I'm confused. I'm staying because I'm in love with you, and 6 months seems like a stupid amount of time to wait to say that." Adrian stared at her like she'd just spoken a language he didn't understand. Then he pulled her down and kissed her again, slower this time, like he was trying to memorize the shape of her mouth. "You're staying," he said against her lips. "You're actually staying." "I'm actually staying. Even though I'm broken?"
You're not broken. You're just different. Emily ran her fingers through his hair. And I love you different. Adrian made a sound that was half laugh, half sob. Then he just held her, face buried against her shoulder, shaking in a way that had nothing to do with physical exhaustion. They stayed like that for a long time. When Adrian finally pulled back, his eyes were red, but his expression was lighter than Emily had ever seen it. I don't know how to do this, he admitted. The relationship part. The being vulnerable part. Good thing we have time to figure it out. 9 months. A lifetime, Emily corrected. If you want it. I want it. I want you. I want... Adrian stopped, overwhelmed. Everything. I want everything with you. Then let's start with getting you back in your chair and going to bed. Not together, Emily added quickly. I mean separately, in our separate rooms, because we should probably take this slow. Emily. Yeah? Shut up and kiss me again. She did, and it felt like coming home to a place she hadn't known existed, like finding something she hadn't realized she'd been searching for, like the beginning of something that might actually last. They did eventually make it back to their separate rooms that night, though it took significantly longer than it should have because Adrian kept pulling Emily back for one more kiss, one more moment, one more whispered confession about how he'd been in love with her since she'd called him out for being an ass after the gala. Emily fell asleep still smiling, her phone buzzing with ignored messages from her sister, her heart too full to care about anything except the fact that Adrian loved her, actually loved her, not the performance or the convenience, but the real, messy, complicated person underneath. The next morning, Adrian was already in the dining room when Emily came down for breakfast. He looked up when she entered, and his expression was so open, so unguarded, that it made Emily's breath catch. "Good morning," he said. "Good morning." Emily sat down across from him. "Sleep well?" "No. Kept replaying last night in my head." "Me too." They stared at each other across the table, neither quite knowing how to navigate this new dynamic. Then Adrian reached across and took Emily's hand. "I meant what I said," he told her. "All of it." "I know. So did I." "So what now?" Emily squeezed his hand. "Now we have breakfast. Then we figure out the rest as we go." "That's not much of a plan." "No, but it's honest, and I think honest is better than perfect." Adrian smiled, really smiled, the kind that transformed his entire face. Honest is definitely better than perfect. They were still holding hands when Marcus walked in and stopped dead. "Oh," he said. "So that happened." "Marcus, get out," Adrian said without looking away from Emily. "Just came to say Scarlett's money transferred. She's officially off our backs." "Good. Now get out." Marcus left, grinning. Emily could hear him in the hallway telling Irina that she owed him $50. "They bet on us?" Emily asked. "Apparently." Adrian didn't look bothered. "Are you okay with this? With us being public? The staff will know by end of day. Word will spread." Emily thought about it, about what it meant to stop pretending their marriage was just business, about the fact that people would talk, would speculate, would have opinions about whether this was real or just another strategic move by Adrian Volkov. "I'm okay with it," she said finally. "Let them talk. We know what this is." "And what is it?" "Real, messy, ours." Emily stood and walked around the table, leaned down to kiss Adrian properly. "And worth fighting for." Adrian pulled her onto his lap, which was awkward given the wheelchair, but neither of them cared. They sat like that for a while, foreheads pressed together, just breathing in the same space. "I love you," Adrian said quietly. "In case I didn't say it enough last night. You said it plenty, but I don't mind hearing it again. I love you, and I'm going to keep saying it until you're sick of hearing it." "That's going to take a while." Emily kissed him again, soft and slow. "I love you too, even when you're stubborn and impossible. Especially when I'm stubborn and impossible. Especially then." They stayed in the dining room long after breakfast was over, talking about everything and nothing, making plans that felt real instead of temporary. About trips they wanted to take, books they wanted to read together, whether Adrian's physical therapy sessions would be weird now that Emily knew exactly how he felt about her. "Probably weirder," Adrian admitted. "James already gives me looks. This will make it worse." "Good. You deserve to be uncomfortable sometimes."
I'm starting to think you enjoy torturing me. Only a little. Emily stood reluctantly. I should let you get to work. Adrian caught her hand. Or you could stay.
Work from the library. Be nearby. You want me nearby? I want you always, but I'll settle for nearby when you're willing. Emily's heart did something complicated. Okay, nearby works. She spent the rest of the day in the library while Adrian worked in his office, doors open so they could see each other across the hallway. It was domestic in a way that should have felt boring, but instead felt perfect. Just existing in the same space, occasionally calling out random thoughts, sharing coffee breaks and stolen kisses when no one was watching. This was what Emily had been searching for her whole life without knowing it. Not grand gestures or dramatic romance, just someone who wanted her present, who valued her company, who saw her and chose her and kept choosing her. And Adrian was that someone. Broken, complicated, difficult Adrian who loved her enough to let down every wall he'd built. It wasn't perfect. They still had 9 months left on their original contract. Still had to navigate the revelation that their marriage had become real. Still had to figure out how to be partners instead of strangers playing roles. But they had time. And they had each other. And for now, that was more than enough. The weeks that followed felt like learning a language Emily hadn't known she needed to speak. Being with Adrian wasn't easy. He was still guarded, still flinched when she got too close to topics that hurt, still woke up some mornings treating her like an employee before remembering they'd crossed that line weeks ago. But he was trying. They both were. And that counted for something. Emily moved into Adrian's wing a month after they'd admitted what they were. Not into his room. Adrian had been adamant about that, saying he needed to do things properly, whatever that meant. But into the room adjacent to his, connected by a sitting area that became their shared space, where they'd have coffee in the morning and talk until midnight and fall asleep on opposite couches when conversation turned into comfortable silence. It was domestic and strange, and nothing like Emily had imagined when she'd agreed to marry a stranger for money. This was real, messy and imperfect and real. I need to tell you something, Adrian said one evening. They were in the sitting area. Emily was reading. Adrian was pretending to work, but mostly just watching her, which he did a lot now that he'd stopped pretending he didn't want to. Emily looked up. That sounds ominous. It's not. Maybe. I don't know. Adrian set his laptop aside. I've been working with James on something specific, and it's been going well enough that I think I might be able to stand soon. Actually stand. For more than a few seconds. Emily's heart jumped. Adrian, that's amazing. It's not definite, and even if I can stand, walking is a whole other thing. Might never happen, but James thinks with the progress I've made, standing is realistic. Maybe in a few months. Why do you look worried about that? Adrian was quiet for a moment. Because what if I can't? What if I get everyone's hopes up and then fail? What if people start expecting the old version of me and I can't deliver? Then you don't deliver, and people deal with it. Emily closed her book. Adrian, you don't owe anyone the person you used to be. You're allowed to be whoever you are now. Oh, what if who I am now isn't enough? For who? Your business partners? Random people with opinions? Because I can promise you, the people who actually matter don't care whether you're standing or sitting. They care that you're here. Do you care? The question was quiet, vulnerable. About whether you can stand? Emily moved to sit beside him. Honestly, no. I fell in love with you in that wheelchair. If you never stand again, nothing changes for me. And if you do stand, nothing changes either. You're still you. Adrian pulled her close, pressed his face against her hair. How did I get this lucky? You married a random event planner out of desperation. Hardly luck. Best decision I ever made. Emily laughed against his chest. You're being sappy. I don't know how to handle sappy Adrian. Get used to it. You're stuck with me now. Good. They stayed like that until Emily's phone started buzzing insistently. She pulled it out, saw Rachel's name for the 100th time that week, and sighed. I should probably call my sister back, Emily said. She's been threatening to show up unannounced if I keep ignoring her. Do you want to see her? I don't know, maybe. She's going to have a lot of opinions about all of this. Then invite her here, Adrian said. Let her have opinions to our faces instead of via text. Emily pulled back to look at him.
You'd be okay with that? Meeting my family? Emily, we're married. I'm going to have to meet your family eventually. Might as well get it over with. Wow. So romantic. Get it over with. Adrian smiled. I'll be charming. I'll win them over. They'll love me. They're going to think you're a criminal who bought their daughter. I am a criminal who bought their daughter. But I'm also a criminal who loves their daughter. That's got to count for something. Emily kissed him. You're ridiculous. You love me anyway. Unfortunately, yes. Rachel showed up 3 days later with their mother in tow because apparently Emily's family had decided this required a united front. Emily met them in the foyer, stomach in knots, very aware that this mansion and this life and this version of herself was going to be impossible to explain. Rachel hugged her first, hard, almost violent. You're alive. I was starting to think he'd murdered you. Hi, Rachel. Mom. Emily hugged her mother, who looked older than she remembered. Tired. Thanks for coming. Did we have a choice? You disappeared into a mansion with a man we've never met and stopped returning calls. Her mother's voice was sharp. What were we supposed to think? That I'm an adult who can make my own decisions? Adults don't marry strangers, Emily. Some adults do. I did. Emily took a breath. Look, I know this is weird. I know you have questions. But can we at least sit down before you start interrogating me? She led them to a sitting room, hyper-aware of how they were looking at everything, the art, the furniture, the obvious wealth that dripped from every surface. Rachel was trying not to look impressed. Her mother just looked suspicious. So, Rachel said once they were seated, Adrian Volkov, mafia boss. How did that happen? He's not... Emily stopped. Okay, he's sort of that. But it's more complicated than... Is he dangerous? Her mother interrupted. Are you safe here? I'm safer here than I've ever been anywhere. That's not an answer. Emily met her mother's gaze. Yes, I'm safe. Adrian would never hurt me. How do you know that? You barely know him. I know him better than I've known anyone. The words came out more forcefully than Emily intended. I know he's been hurt by people he trusted. I know he pushes himself too hard because he thinks being injured makes him weak. I know he reads the same books over and over when he's stressed. I know he's terrified of caring about people because everyone he's cared about has left. And I know he loves me. Actually loves me. Not for what I can do for him or what I represent. Just me. Rachel and their mother exchanged looks. Then Rachel said, You're in love with him? Yes. After 4 months? Yes. Emily, that's... Rachel stopped, choosing words carefully. That's really fast. I know, but it's real, and I need you to trust me on that. How can we trust you? You married him without telling us. You disappeared into his world without warning. For all we know, he's manipulating you, and you can't see it. He's not manipulating me. Then why did you marry him so fast? What aren't you telling us? Emily looked at her sister and her mother and realized she had 2 choices. Keep lying, keep pretending this had been some whirlwind romance, or tell the truth and trust that they'd understand. He offered me $5 million, Emily said quietly, to marry him for a year, after his actual bride left him at the altar. The silence was deafening. Rachel's expression cycled through shock and understanding, and something that looked like pity. Their mother just looked horrified. You sold yourself, her mother said finally. You sold yourself to a criminal for money. I accepted a business arrangement that turned into something real. That's the same thing, Emily. It's not, and you know it's not. Emily stood, paced to the window. I spent my entire life being invisible. Being the daughter no one noticed, the friend people forgot to invite, the girlfriend men left because I wasn't interesting enough. And then Adrian saw me. Not for what I could be or what he wanted me to be. He saw me exactly as I am and decided I was enough. So yes, it started as a transaction, but it became real, and I'm not apologizing for that. You're apologizing for taking money to play dress-up as a mobster's wife, Rachel said. That's different. Is it? Because from where I'm standing, you married a hedge fund manager because he had a good salary and Dad approved. How is that different from what I did? Rachel's face flushed. That's not fair. It's completely fair. We all make choices based on what we need. I needed security. Adrian needed a wife. We found a solution that worked for both of us. And along the way, we found each other. That's a nice story, their mother said. But what happens when the year is up? When the contract ends and you realize this whole thing was built on a lie? The contract doesn't matter anymore. We're staying together. He told you that? Yes. And you believe him? Emily turned to face them. Yes, I believe him, because he's shown me through action, not just words. He defends me. He values my opinion. He lets me see him when he's struggling. That's not manipulation. That's trust. Rachel stood, moved to where Emily was standing. I'm not saying this to hurt you, but men like Adrian Volkov don't change. They don't suddenly become good people because they fall in love. They just get better at hiding what they are. You don't know him. Neither do you. Not really. You know what he's shown you. That's not the same as knowing who he actually is. Before Emily could respond, Adrian's voice cut through the room. She's right. Everyone turned. Adrian sat in the doorway, expression neutral. How long he'd been there, Emily didn't know. You're right, Adrian repeated, rolling into the room. Emily doesn't know everything about me. The things I've done, the people I've hurt to build my business, the choices I've made that would probably horrify her if she knew the details. He stopped in front of Rachel. But I'm trying to be someone worthy of her. And yeah, maybe I'll fail. Maybe I'll revert to being the monster everyone thinks I am. But I'm going to try anyway, because she makes me want to be better. Rachel stared at him. That's a pretty speech. It's the truth, which I realize means nothing to you right now, but it means something to her, and her opinion is the only one I care about. Then tell me, Rachel challenged. Tell me one thing you've done that would horrify her. Prove you're being honest. Adrian glanced at Emily. She nodded. Whatever he said, they'd deal with it. 6 years ago, a man tried to steal from me, Adrian said. A business partner who thought I wouldn't notice. I noticed, and I made sure everyone in my organization knew what happens to thieves. I had him beaten so badly, he spent 3 weeks in the hospital. Then I ruined his life systematically, took his business, his house, his reputation. By the time I was done, he had nothing, and I felt justified doing it because betrayal deserves consequences. He paused. The man killed himself a year later, and I told myself it wasn't my fault, that he made his choices and I made mine. But the truth is, I destroyed him, and I'd probably do it again if someone betrayed me now. That's who I am. Someone who doesn't forgive, someone who punishes without mercy. The room was silent. Emily felt sick, but not surprised. She'd known Adrian's world was violent. Knowing specifics just made it real in a way that was harder to ignore. That's horrible, their mother said finally. Yes, it is. Adrian didn't look away. And there are other stories like that, probably dozens. I'm not a good man. I'm a man who does bad things for reasons that make sense to me. But I'm trying to be better, for Emily. And I know that's not enough. But it's what I have. Rachel turned to Emily. And you're okay with this? Emily thought about lying. About saying yes, she was fine. She'd made peace with who Adrian was. But that would be dishonest. I'm not okay with it, she said quietly. I hate that he hurt people. I hate that his world is violent and that he thinks consequences mean destruction. But I also know he's trying to change, to build something legitimate, to use his power differently. And I believe that change is possible if someone believes in you enough to hold you accountable. She moved to stand beside Adrian's wheelchair. So no, I'm not okay with his past, but I'm committed to helping him build a different future. That's naive, Rachel said. Maybe, but it's my choice. And I'm making it with open eyes. Their mother stood. I think we should go. Mom, no, Emily, I can't support this. I can't watch you throw your life away on a man who hurts people and thinks money fixes everything. She looked at Adrian. You seem to care about my daughter. If that's true, you'll let her go. You'll let her have a normal life with someone who isn't, whatever you are. You're right, Adrian said quietly. She deserves better than me. She deserves someone who hasn't done the things I've done. But I'm selfish enough to keep her anyway, because she's the only good thing in my life, and I don't have the strength to give that up. Emily's mother shook her head and left. Rachel lingered for a moment, looking between Emily and Adrian. I hope you know what you're doing, she said finally.
Because if he hurts you, I don't know how to fix that. I know what I'm doing, Emily said, even though she wasn't entirely sure that was true. Rachel left. The house felt very quiet after they were gone. That went well, Adrian said dryly. Emily sat on the arm of his wheelchair. You didn't have to tell them that. About the business partner. Yes, I did. Because they needed to know I'm not lying to you, that I'm not pretending to be someone I'm not. He took her hand. Are you okay? With what I said? I don't know. Ask me tomorrow when I've processed it. Fair enough? They sat in silence for a while. Then Emily said, My mom's right, you know. I do deserve better than you. I know. But I'm choosing you anyway, because better is boring. And you're a lot of things, but you're not boring. Adrian pulled her down into his lap. You're insane. Probably. But I'm your brand of insane. So we match. We really don't. You're good, and I'm not. You're good enough for me. That's all that matters. Adrian kissed her slow and deep. When they broke apart, he said, I'm going to mess this up. You know that, right? I'm going to do something awful, and you're going to question why you stayed. Probably. And I'm going to drive you crazy with my need for affection and communication and all the things you're terrible at. But we'll figure it out. You're very optimistic for someone who just heard that her husband destroyed a man's life. I'm very optimistic for someone who fell in love with a mafia boss. It's kind of my thing now. Adrian laughed despite himself. You're ridiculous. You've mentioned that several times. Because it keeps being true. They stayed like that until the light faded and Irina came to announce dinner. Walked to the dining room hand in hand, facing whatever came next together. 3 months later, Scarlett resurfaced. Not in person this time, but through the media. Someone had leaked the story about Adrian's marriage, how it started, the contract, everything. The article was everywhere within hours, complete with unnamed sources and enough detail that it couldn't be dismissed as rumor. Emily saw it first, scrolling through news on her phone over breakfast. Her stomach dropped. Adrian, she said quietly. He looked up from his coffee. What's wrong? She handed him the phone, watched his expression shift from confusion to cold fury as he read. Scarlett, he said finally. How do you know? Because this has her fingerprints all over it. The timing, the details, the way it's framed to make me look like a monster who bought you. Adrian set the phone down carefully. I should have seen this coming. What do we do? Damage control. Marcus, get in here. Marcus appeared within seconds. Adrian explained the situation in clipped sentences. Marcus's expression darkened. I'll call the lawyers, see if we can trace the source, maybe get ahead of this. Don't bother, we know the source. And suing Scarlett will just make it worse. Adrian turned to Emily. We need to make a statement, together, before this spirals. What kind of statement? The truth? We're close enough to it. We admit the marriage started as an arrangement, but we explain that it became real, that we fell in love, that what we have now is legitimate. Adrian's voice was tight. Unless you don't want to do that, unless you'd rather, I'm not leaving you because of an article, Adrian. You should. This is going to get ugly. People are going to have opinions. Your family is going to say they were right. You're going to be painted as either a victim or a gold digger, neither of which is fair. Emily took his hand. Then we tell our story, properly. No apologies, no shame, just the truth. They held a press conference that afternoon. Marcus set it up fast, called in favors, made sure the right reporters were there. Emily wore a navy dress that Irina had insisted projected confidence. Adrian wore a suit that made him look dangerous and untouchable. Together they faced a room full of cameras and questions. Adrian spoke first, his voice steady. By now you've all seen the article about how my marriage to Emily began. And I'm here to confirm that yes, our marriage started as a business arrangement. Emily was hired to stand in as my bride after my previous engagement ended publicly. That's the truth. But it's not the whole truth. He looked at Emily. She took over, her voice stronger than she'd expected. What Adrian isn't saying is that somewhere between the contract and now, we fell in love. Real love. Not the kind you plan or negotiate. The messy, complicated kind that happens when two people actually see each other. And yes, it started unconventionally. But it's real. and we're not apologizing for that. The questions came rapid fire.
Was she being coerced? Had Adrian paid her? Was this just another manipulation? Emily answered each one calmly. Yes, there was an initial payment. Yes, they'd agreed to stay married for a year. No, she wasn't being forced to stay. Yes, she loved him, actually loved him. When someone asked if she regretted accepting the arrangement, Emily didn't hesitate. No, because that arrangement gave me something I'd been looking for my whole life. Someone who sees me, who values me, who chooses me every single day. So no, I don't regret it.
Adrian added, I'm not a good man. I've done things I'm not proud of to build my business, but Emily makes me want to be better. And whatever you think of how this started, what we have now is real. And we're not letting anyone take that away from us. The press conference ended with more questions than answers, but Emily felt lighter afterward. They'd told their truth. Let the world make of it what they wanted. The response was mixed. Some outlets called it a love story. Others called it manipulation. Emily's phone exploded with messages from people she hadn't spoken to in years, everyone suddenly having opinions about her life. She ignored most of them, except Rachel, who sent a single text. I still think you're crazy, but maybe the good kind of crazy. Call me when you're ready. Well, Adrian said that evening, we survived. Did we? It feels like we just painted targets on our backs. We did, but we did it together. That's got to count for something. Emily curled against him on the couch. Do you regret it? Being honest? No, because now there's nothing left to hide, no secrets she can use against us. We took away her power by admitting the truth first. Adrian kissed her temple. We're going to be fine. You don't know that. No, but I'm choosing to believe it anyway, because the alternative is giving up. And I don't give up, especially not on you. The fallout lasted weeks. Business partners questioned Adrian's judgment. Rivals tried to use the revelation as leverage. Emily dealt with reporters camped outside the mansion and strangers who felt entitled to opinions about her marriage. But they weathered it, together. And slowly, gradually, the attention faded. New scandals emerged. People found other things to care about. The story of Adrian and Emily became just another piece of gossip that eventually went stale. 6 months after the press conference, Adrian stood for the first time in over 2 years. It happened during a physical therapy session. Emily was in her usual corner, reading, not paying close attention. Then James said, "Okay, we're going to try something." And Emily looked up to see Adrian gripping the parallel bars with an intensity that made her nervous. "I don't know if I can do this," Adrian said. "You can, just trust the process." James positioned himself behind Adrian. On 3. 1, 2, 3. Adrian pulled, shook. For a moment, nothing happened. Then slowly, agonizingly, he straightened. His legs held. He was standing. The sound Adrian made wasn't quite a laugh, wasn't quite a sob. Just pure relief and triumph and disbelief all mixed together. "I'm standing," he said. "I'm actually—" His legs gave out after 10 seconds. James caught him, eased him back into the wheelchair, but Adrian was grinning wider than Emily had ever seen. "I stood," he said, looking at Emily. "Did you see that?" "I saw it." Emily was crying and didn't care. "You did it! 10 seconds. That's nothing. That's everything." Adrian's progress accelerated after that. 10 seconds became 30. 30 became a minute. A minute became taking actual steps with support. It was slow, frustrating work, but Adrian kept pushing, and Emily kept showing up to watch. 3 months later, Adrian walked across the physical therapy room unassisted. 11 steps before he needed to sit down, but 11 steps that proved everything was possible if you wanted it badly enough. "I'm proud of you," Emily told him on the drive home. "It's just walking. I used to do it without thinking." "It's not just walking. It's proof that you're stronger than the accident, that you can rebuild yourself into whoever you want to be." Adrian took her hand. "I couldn't have done it without you." "Yes, you could have." "No, I would have given up, would have decided it wasn't worth the effort. But you made it worth it. You made everything worth it." That night, Adrian asked Emily to move into his room properly. Not the adjacent space. His actual room, his bed, his life. "Are you sure?" Emily asked. "We've been taking things slow. We've been married for a year and a half. I think slow has run its course."
Adrian pulled her close. I want to wake up next to you. I want to fall asleep with you. I want you in my space, in my life, permanently. No more separate rooms, no more pretending we're not completely tangled up in each other. Emily kissed him. Okay. Yeah? Yeah. Let's be completely tangled up. Moving her things took less time than Emily expected, mostly because she didn't have much she wanted to bring. The important parts, her books, her clothes, the framed photo of her dad, fit in a few boxes. Everything else could stay in the guest room that had never really felt like hers anyway. Adrian's room was large and dark, and very obviously his. Heavy furniture, minimal decoration, books stacked everywhere. Emily started moving things around immediately, making space for herself, and Adrian didn't complain. Just watched her reorganize his life with an expression that looked like contentment. Are you going to let me keep any of my stuff in its original location? He asked. Probably not. You have terrible organizational skills. I'm a crime boss. I don't need organizational skills. You're a crime boss who can't find his reading glasses without help. You need organizational skills desperately. Adrian pulled her onto the bed. I don't need glasses if I have you to read things for me. That's a terrible system. It's efficient. He kissed her slowly. And it means you can't leave. I'm not leaving. Promise? Promise. They stayed in that night, ordered takeout, watched movies neither of them paid attention to. It was ordinary and perfect and exactly what Emily had been missing her entire life. Someone who wanted her there just because. Not for what she could do or how she could help, just for existing in the same space. I love you, Adrian said around midnight. I know. That's it? Just, I know? Emily smiled against his chest. I love you too, but you already knew that. Yeah, but I like hearing it. Then I'll keep saying it, every day until you're sick of it. I'll never be sick of it. We'll see. Give it another 50 years. Adrian went still. 50 years? At least. Maybe 60 if we're lucky. Emily looked up at him. Is that okay? Am I allowed to plan that far ahead? You're allowed to plan whatever you want. I'm not going anywhere. Good. Because I've gotten used to you. It would be inconvenient if you left. Inconvenient, Adrian repeated. That's romantic. I'm very romantic. You love it. I do, unfortunately. The 1-year anniversary of their wedding arrived quietly. Emily woke up to Adrian already awake, watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. What? She asked. It's been a year. The contract's up. Technically, you're free to go. Emily's heart stumbled. Do you want me to go? No. But I want you to know you can. That you don't owe me anything. That if you want to walk away, Emily kissed him to shut him up. I'm not walking away. The contract stopped mattering months ago. We both know that. I want to renew our vows, Adrian said, properly this time. Not in front of hundreds of people I barely know. Just us and the people who actually matter. Make this official in a way that isn't about survival or strategy. Just love. Emily felt tears burning. You want to marry me again? I want to marry you right. The way I should have the first time if I hadn't been so focused on not looking weak. Adrian took her hand. You deserve a wedding that's about us. About choosing each other freely. Will you marry me again, Emily? Knowing exactly what you're getting into. Yes, obviously, yes. They held the ceremony 2 months later. Small, intimate, in the mansion's garden. Just Rachel and Emily's mom. Marcus and Irina and James. A handful of Adrian's people who'd proven themselves loyal. The priest who'd married them the first time, looking significantly less stressed. Emily wore a dress she'd chosen herself, simple, white, nothing like the borrowed bridesmaid dress from the first wedding. Adrian stood at the altar. Actually stood, with just a cane for support. When Emily reached him, he was shaking slightly from the effort, but his smile was real. Hi, she said. Hi. Adrian took her hand. You look beautiful. You're standing. I wanted to be standing when I married you properly. Seemed important. The ceremony was short. No performance, no strategy, just two people who'd found each other in chaos and decided to build something real. When the priest asked if she took Adrian to be her husband, Emily's voice was steady. I do. Adrian's response was quieter. I do. Then by the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. Again. Everyone laughed. Adrian pulled Emily close and kissed her, and it felt like beginning instead of ending, like the start of something they'd build together instead of something imposed by desperation. At the reception, small, just dinner in the mansion, Rachel pulled Emily aside. "You were right," she said, "about him, about all of this. I was wrong to judge. You weren't wrong to be worried. This whole thing was insane." "It was, but it worked. You're happy, really happy. And he looks at you like you're the only thing keeping him alive." Rachel hugged her. "I'm glad you didn't listen to me." "Me too." Emily rejoined Adrian at their table. He'd finally sat down, exhausted from standing through the ceremony. She took his hand. "Tired?" she asked. "Exhausted. Worth it, though." Adrian lifted her hand, kissed her knuckles. "Thank you." "For what?" "For staying. For believing in me when I didn't believe in myself. For making me want to be better." His voice dropped. "For loving me when I didn't deserve it." "You deserve it. You just needed to believe that." "I'm starting to. Because of you." The evening faded into night. Guests left gradually. Eventually, it was just Emily and Adrian in the garden, string lights glowing overhead, music playing softly. "Dance with me," Adrian said. "You've been standing all day. You should rest." "I'm resting tomorrow. Right now I want to dance with my wife." Emily helped him stand, supported him while they swayed to music that was barely audible. It wasn't graceful. Adrian leaned heavily on her, and they moved slowly, carefully. But it was theirs, real and imperfect, and theirs. "I love you," Adrian said against her hair, "in case I haven't said it enough today." "You've said it plenty, but I don't mind hearing it again." "I love you. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life proving you made the right choice staying." Emily pulled back enough to meet his gaze. "You already have. Every single day. You've already proven it." They stayed in the garden until Adrian couldn't stand anymore. Went inside to a house that was finally, truly home. Fell asleep tangled together in a bed that belonged to both of them. And in the morning, Emily woke up to Adrian watching her again, expression soft in the early light. "Good morning, Mrs. Volkov," he said. "Good morning, Mr. Volkov." Emily kissed him. "What do you want to do today?" "Anything, everything, whatever you want. I want normal, just a normal day with you." "I think I can manage that." They spent the day doing nothing important. Breakfast together. Walking through the garden, slowly, with Adrian using his cane, but walking. Reading in the library. Making dinner together in a kitchen that usually only the staff used. Small, ordinary moments that added up to a life Emily had stopped believing she'd ever have. That night, curled against Adrian's chest, Emily thought about the woman she'd been a year and a half ago. Invisible, lonely, convinced she wasn't enough. That woman wouldn't recognize who Emily had become. Someone seen, someone valued, someone loved. "Thank you," Emily said quietly. "For what?" "For asking me to marry you, that day at the altar. For being desperate enough to grab a random event planner and change both our lives." Adrian was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Best decision I ever made, even if it started for all the wrong reasons. Maybe there are no wrong reasons if you end up in the right place." "Maybe." Emily fell asleep listening to Adrian's heartbeat, steady and real beneath her ear. Fell asleep knowing she'd made the right choice, that this messy, complicated, imperfect love was worth every risk, every fear, every moment of uncertainty. Because in the end, love wasn't about being someone's first choice. It was about being their every choice, every single day, choosing each other through chaos and calm, through standing and falling, through every version of themselves they became. And Emily and Adrian had chosen each other, were still choosing each other, would keep choosing each other for as long as they both lived. It wasn't the love story Emily had imagined. It was better, real and earned in theirs, and that was more than enough.